In 1932, Australia declared war on birds. Not a metaphor. The actual army, with actual machine guns against emus, and the emus won. That is not the embarrassing part. The embarrassing part is the Army's own official report, which admits it took 10 bullets per bird. This is the story of the Great Emu War. Everything you're about to hear is true. It starts, like most disasters, with a government plan. After World War I, Australia had thousands of returning soldiers and no idea what to do with them. So it gave them farms in Western Australia, on land that was mostly sand and regret. The deal was, grow wheat, and the government pays you subsidies. Then the Great Depression hit, wheat prices collapsed, and the subsidies never arrived. So by 1932 you have thousands of broke, furious veteran farmers. And that's when the emus arrived. 20,000 of them. Quick briefing on the emu: 6 feet tall, top speed, 50 kilometers an hour, eats everything, fears nothing, and cannot be negotiated with. Every year they migrate from the middle of the country toward the coast. But in 1932 the migrating emus found something new, freshly cleared farmland with water laid on. From the emu point of view, Australia had built them a resort. They started demolishing the wheat. Now, these particular farmers were war veterans. They had personally operated machine guns. So they sent the government a very direct request: send machine guns. And the Minister of Defence, Sir George Pearce, said yes. He thought it would be good target practice. He was so confident he arranged for a film crew to come along and record the victory. Remember the film crew? They matter later. The Army deployed Major G.P.W. Meredith of the 7th Heavy Battery, Royal Australian Artillery. Under his command, 2 men, Sergeant McMurray and Gunner O'Halloran. 3 men, 2 machine guns, 10,000 rounds of ammunition versus 20,000 emus. If you're doing the math, that's half a bullet per emu. The plan required every bullet to kill 2 birds. The war was scheduled to begin in October. It was immediately delayed by rain. On November 2nd, the shooting finally started. The troops spotted about 50 emus near Campion and opened fire. Military training tells you an enemy under fire holds formation. The emus scattered in every direction at 50 kilometers an hour. Confirmed kills from the first battle, about a dozen. 2 days later, Meredith saw his big chance. 1,000 emus marching straight toward a dam where his machine guns were already waiting. Point-blank range. This was the massacre the film crew had come for. The guns opened fire, killed 12 birds and jammed. The remaining 988 emus left. By day 4, Army observers were writing genuinely concerning things in their field reports. Quote, "Each pack seems to have its own leader now, a big black-plumed bird, fully 6 feet high, who keeps watch while his mates carry out their work of destruction." The Australian Army was 4 days into a war with birds and had started believing in an emu general. The general also matters later. Meredith adapted. If the emus were too fast on foot, he would use technology. He mounted a machine gun on a truck. This created 2 problems. Problem 1, the emus outran the truck. Problem 2, the ride was so bumpy the gunner couldn't land a single shot. The Australian Army was now losing a car chase to birds. A leading ornithologist, Dominic Saventi, later reviewed the campaign. His professional assessment: the Emu Command had evidently ordered guerrilla tactics. That is a real scientist describing real birds as an insurgency. After 6 days of war, the numbers came in. Rounds fired, 2,500. Official kill count, 50. The newspapers found out and were exactly as kind as you'd expect. It reached federal parliament, where one MP asked whether a medal would be struck for this war. The suggestion from the floor: any medals should go to the emus who had won every round so far. On November 8th, the Minister of Defence pulled the troops out. Meredith filed his official report, noting his men had suffered no casualties, except for their dignity. And the film crew went home with footage of the Australian Army watching birds walk away. You would think that's the end of it. It is not, because the emus kept eating. The farmers begged for the army back, and the state premier backed them. So, on November 13th, 5 days after retreating, Australia went back to war. Same major, same 2 guns. A sequel absolutely nobody asked for. This time, Meredith stopped chasing and started waiting, camped by the water the emus needed. It worked, sort of. By December, they were killing about 100 emus a week. On December 10th, the war officially ended, and Meredith filed his final report. Emus confirmed killed, 986. Rounds fired, 9,860. That is exactly 10 bullets per bird. Meredith also claimed another 2,500 emus died later from their wounds. Historians describe that number as likely very inflated, which is academic language for "sure, buddy." But the best part of the final report is Meredith's assessment of the enemy. This is a real quote. If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world. They can face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks. That is an officer of the Australian Army on the record comparing emus to armoured vehicles. The farmers asked for the army again in 1934, denied. They asked again in 1943, in the middle of World War II, denied. Australia had other wars, and presumably still hadn't recovered from this one. They asked one final time in 1948, denied. What the government did instead, it put a price on emu heads, and in 6 months of 1934, ordinary farmers collecting that bounty claimed 57,000 emus. The army, with machine guns, in 6 weeks, 986. It turns out the deadliest weapon in Australia was a modest cash reward, and what finally stopped the emus wasn't a weapon at all. It was a fence. The emus never surrendered, by the way. No treaty was ever signed. Somewhere out there, 6 feet of black-plumed bird is still watching. The lesson, as always, before you declare war, check whether the enemy even knows it's in one. Subscribe. Or don't. Retreating worked fine for Australia.